Thank you very much, Henry, and thanks everybody for joining us for lunch. I know we got a packed schedule, so you're in for a treat here. And I'm going to start this thing by just saying the following. We're going to make this interactive, so if you have questions now or you think of questions as we go, we're going to have a small window at the end. We're going to fire questions away at Manny. We never leave enough time for that, so think of your questions now and we'll get to that. We normally start these sessions, and it's an honor to be here on stage with Manny, the living legend of medicine. I've had the opportunity to get to know Manny over the many, many years and learn about his businesses, and I'm really excited about the venture that he's working on now. And we normally start with talking about the history on how you got here, so I'd like to do this a little bit different today. Manny, I'd like you to share with the audience, if you could, whatever opening remarks you have, but tell us a little bit about Medical 21 and what you're working on, and then I want to get back into the history if that flow works for you. So over to you.
Okay, and before anything else, I hope all of you do appreciate the work that Scott and his team is doing to try to bring together the entrepreneurs, their spirit and everything, to a session here to meet with the people that are trying to sponsor that work, trying to finance that work. And believe me, as an entrepreneur, there is no money on the floor. There's no money in the streets. You have to go and work for it. And he is helping facilitate that ability, and he's doing a super job. I don't know if you have attended the LSIs before, but in every one of them, they seem to get better and even greater attendance, et cetera. And thankful to him as representing the entrepreneurs that are at this meeting. Thank you, Scott, for putting this together.
I want you to share with the audience what you're working on right now, because one of the main questions that we all have, myself included, is, Manny, why are you still going at it? Why are you doing this? And maybe you can address that, but tell us what you're doing with Medical 21, and then tell us why you keep doing it. I think you'll answer that question when you share Medical 21.
Well, what we're doing at Medical 21, of course, is trying to create an artificial artery between 800,000 and 1 million times per year in the world. Someone is doing bypass surgery on patients. And it requires these tearing open, stripping open your legs, your arms, your breast, to get a vessel to put on the heart to go around the blockages that you have in the heart. That's a typical bypass surgery. A typical patient receives about 3 or 4 vessels, a triple or quadruple bypass, as we say. But yet, every time they do it, they have to harvest a vessel out of your leg, out of your arms, etc. If you've had an opportunity this morning to see my presentation, I show an actual picture of tearing open legs and arms to do this. And for years, people have tried to develop an artificial artery. In the past 50, 60 years, at least maybe 100, 150 different individuals, hospitals, and companies have tried to do that, but no one has ever been able to do it. I decided about 7 years ago, I should say, because this month we celebrated our 7th anniversary, to pursue an idea of trying to make a graft that will regenerate itself within the body after we put it in the body, after we support it, after we strengthen it, put it in, so that within your own body you grow a new graft that is on your heart. And that's what we're doing, and we're at the stage now where we hope to begin our clinical trials in Switzerland, as I mentioned this morning. During that travel, we've, of course, have had to find the funds to do this. We have raised approximately $12 million over the last 7 years, and we're trying right now, presently, to raise about another $10 million to do the clinical trial. We go all different fashions to raise that money. We have private individuals, accredited investors that will put in $100,000, $200,000 at a clip. We welcome interest from venture capital, and we are also pursuing discussions with maybe strategics that have some interest in this field. A very difficult step there, because typically there is nothing really coming out of cardiac surgery market. There's not a product. I mean, obviously we're doing, as I said, 1 million procedures per year, but there's no product. So for the first time, a strategic, a Boston, a Medtronic, a St. Jude, et cetera, okay, all can now take a look at cardiac surgery and say, there is a product down there. It's an artificial graft that Medical 21 is building. Now, how did we get there? Where do we start with the journey? If you want to start with the journey, I suppose it starts with the first open heart surgery, what we call cross circulation, that was done in 1954. In 1954, there was no way to open the heart. There was no pumps. There was no way of doing it. And yet little children were born with a lot of heart deformities that required the surgeon to open up the heart of a child, a heart of a baby. And one of those gentlemen that was working on that was a gentleman named Dr. C. Walton Lillehei, often known as really the father of open heart surgery. I had the great fortune of knowing him personally, and he was my mentor. Believe me, he was my mentor. But anyway, it started in 1954. He had done some experimentation in animal, went to his boss, and the boss said, by all means, go ahead, Walt. And that little piece of paper is in a little museum in Minneapolis. If you want to see the actual written instruction, by all means, go ahead, Walt. And when he was describing what he was going to do to a group of surgeons, one of those surgeons got up and went to the local judge to get a warrant to arrest C. Walton Lillehei because he thought he was crazy. And he went to the judge and he said, Judge, we should arrest this man because what he is trying to do has not 100% mortality, a chance of 100% mortality. It has a chance of a 200% mortality. And maybe some of you don't know how that can happen. I'll kind of describe it quickly. What Walt did was take a baby, put it on the operating room table. On the other, close by, nearby, probably 10, 15 feet away, he put the father of the child on a table. 2 patients. He put a milk pump, a pump that he acquired at the dairy farm in Wisconsin, and he put it in the middle. And he connected the father to the pump, from the pump to the child, and then going down to the inferior vena cava of the baby, connected the baby to the pump, and the pump back to the father. Now, if anything went wrong, guess what? 200% mortality. So you can see that was kind of crazy. Well, before the warrant was served, Walt had already done it, okay? And the statistics show, and I may be a little bit inaccurate, but somewhere around 50 to 95, I've heard numbers as high as 95 cases were done. No one died. There was one child that died, I think, after 10 or 12 days after surgery because of pneumonia, but it was a very successful procedure, better than the statistics that we have today on cardiac surgery. That's where it started. Now, for me, I got involved when I answered an ad for a little company in New York. I was born and raised in New York. I answered an ad for a company that was looking for someone in sales who had a little knowledge of Spanish. So if I'm walking around the building and you see me speaking Spanish, it's because I have to practice it. I'm in Spain, okay? And that's where I'm going to practice, and that's what I do, okay? But anyway, the job called for helping small medical companies export their product overseas. The name of the company was Picker International, a subsidiary of Picker X-Ray, which at that time was the largest X-ray company of the world. And they were replacing all the buildings and hospitals in Europe because after the war, there was a lot of need for hospitals and new buildings and new places. And And of course, in every hospital, as soon as you build a hospital, you're going to put in 5, 10 different x-ray machines in there. But they found that the team of people to support those x-ray machines could also sell different medical products. So they formed a division called Picker International to find companies that may want to sell their products. So they went to various companies, and one of those companies was a little company, really little company, teeny-weeny little company called Medtronic, whose annual sales was less than $1 million, who had already gone through 2 bankruptcies, okay, but going nowhere. By coincidence, they hired me, they brought me on board, and for some reason they handed me Medtronic, and they said, you're going to be handling the pacemaker. What the heck is a pacemaker? And at the time, we all had to learn. It was a battery pack about the size of a hockey puck, heavier than a hockey puck, but would probably last anywhere between 12 and 18 months, if you were lucky. And that was the birth of Medtronic business going overseas, which it turned out to be even bigger than what they were doing domestically. Okay? So that's how I got involved with pacemakers. Medtronic then brought me on board a couple of years directly and moved me out to Minneapolis. Minneapolis, where is that, you know? From South. Okay, and now my very, very first day in Minneapolis was March 8th. March, not January, not February, March 8th. And when I woke up in the morning after staying in a local motel there, the temperature was 15 below zero with a wind chill of 43 below zero. For some of you who are from Europe here and you use the Celsius system, same number. 43 below Fahrenheit is equal to about 43 below Celsius. Now do you understand how cold that is? Okay? That was my first day in Minneapolis. Okay. After working with Medtronic for about 5 years, I told them, you got to make a pacemaker better because patients are dying. It's hard to live getting a new pacemaker every 12 to 18 months. So working with an engineer that was developing a new power source, I worked with the new engineer, and we developed a pacemaker called the first lithium-powered pacemaker, which was CPI. And we ended up with a pacemaker about half the size, about half the weight, okay? But instead of 12 to 18 months, my goal was to make it 10 years. No one had ever done that. No one had ever gone to the moon on that one. Are you crazy? No one can do that. And there were 7 manufacturers of pacemakers at that time. And no one got up to 2 years, never mind 10 years. But we made it, and I was wrong. We did not hit the 10 years. We hit instead 50 years, 50. There are still pacemakers that we made back in 1972, 73 that are still running 50 years later. Okay? That company became history, and of course, eventually Boston Scientific bought that company for $27 billion. One surgeon came along and said, Manny, you've done a nice job in pacemakers. In fact, 2 surgeons, another one named Dr. Parsonet, and the other one was Dr. Nikoloff. And he said, why don't you try your luck in heart valves? I knew nothing about heart valves. Looked at him, and they said, this is what happens, and stuff like that. And we started working on the heart valve, and we ended up developing the St. Jude heart valve, which was the first valve, again, that would last a lifetime of a patient. Manny, no valve lasts a lifetime of a patient. 5, 10 years if you're lucky. Okay, and we did that, and we went beyond that. And they all cause strokes, and they all break, and they all wear out. And they ended up with the St. Jude valve, which, by the way, was made out of glass. And of course, when you think of glass, you think of breakage, and you think of wearing out and stuff like that. But we made the St. Jude valve, which went on to be the most commonly used prosthesis in the world. It would not wear out, caused very, very little strokes, very little problems and stuff like that, and became the standard of care in the heart valve.
I wanted to ask a couple questions, and then we're going to open it up to the audience. But the St. Jude story always fascinates me because you've shared with me the number of iterations that you had to go through, and the point really of exhaustion that we all get as entrepreneurs when we're have so much conviction for something, but it's hard.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and being an entrepreneur is not for everybody.
Yeah.
And if anybody knows me, they know that my heart is with the entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So could you talk a little bit about, with the St. Jude story, just that night, and then we'll get into some questions, but that night when you got that call, when you were on that, I don't know, 14th version or whatever it was of the St. Jude heart valve, how close you guys were to not getting there. And if that valve didn't get created, think about the world that we live in today. But what happened that night, and why perseverance is so important for not only the innovators here, but the investors that need to have the patience for the companies that we're building. Could you tell us a little bit about that night?
That story came up relatively recent when we were doing the medical 21 graph. And you know, when you're developing things, you try it doesn't work, throw it in the garbage can. Then you try it again, you throw it in the garbage can. And every time you throw it in the garbage can, I call that iteration 1, iteration 2, iteration 3. And making an artificial graph is very, very difficult. And we were about iteration number 11. And my team was looking at me kind of cross-eyed and saying, well, Manny, I don't know if we can do this. We've tried this 11 times. It's not working. So I pulled out the story about one day I was doing St. Jude. And for some reason, I had to go back into the machine shop because valves were typically made in the machine shops. And there was a guy named Charlie Hosley, our machinist, our chief machinist, and he was adjusting the machines, and he was crying, you know, wiping the tears from his eyes. And I said, Charlie, what's the problem? What's wrong? He said, Manny, this is the 26th iteration that we're doing on the St. Jude valve, and we still don't have it right. It's not working. Well, we continued, obviously, and we did continue to make the St. Jude valve. So when I was telling this story to my team at 11 iteration, when I finished the story, I said, okay, guys, we got a long way to go yet. Okay, and we actually went up to iteration 13. I thought we had it, and some surgeon said to me, Manny, no, it's still not there. Finally, at iteration 14, we got it. We're making it. The animal studies are phenomenal. And doctors are ready and waiting for our graph, which, as I said, hopefully at next quarter we can start doing our clinical trials. But it is, I don't care what entrepreneur is doing right now, there comes a time when you say, oh my God, I got to try it again and again. And that also goes for funding, by the way.
That's right. And I think Charlie called you, I think that same Charlie that was crying called you up in the middle of the night one night to tell you he had it and you had to come down to the office.
No,
right?
It was another guy. One of my engineers said, Manny, he calls me at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm sleeping, and I go, and the phone rings at 3, hello. And he said, Manny, I got it. At that time, we were making the St. Jude valve, but they were all breaking. Because remember, it's made out of glass. A pyrolytic carbon is a form of glass. And in that particular month, the month of February of 1978, we broke 97 out of 100 valves. That, the 3% yield is not going to make a business. And we had a lot of problems. We couldn't make it. We couldn't put the leaflets in them without breaking the ring. But this one engineer, a guy named Peter, called me up at 3 in the morning. Manny, I got it. And I said, Peter, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. It's a big snowstorm outside. What are you calling me up? He said, Manny, I got it. I had a dream. Yeah, Peter, right. And he's one of these engineers been telling me, yeah, well, don't worry about it. We'll figure it. I'll see you at 5 o'clock in the morning. I said, no, you're not. You're lucky if you see me at 9 o'clock because there's a snowstorm outside. Anyway, I got there at 9 o'clock in the morning, and he's there at the door waiting to take my coat off, and it's snowing and everything, and get inside. And he takes me into the lab, and he says, I'll sit down, and you're going to make it. And he had 13 rings on the table, and he wanted me to convert them to 13 valves. And I said, why am I doing it? Why don't we get one of our manufacturing ladies who, have small hands and can do it properly and everything. Oh, no, 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 you can do it. I said, why? He said, Manny, if you can do it, anybody can do it, okay? I kicked him in a few places, in the shins and in other places, but we finally got it going. And it was a solution on how to do it. We never patented that solution. We kept it as a trade secret, and that's how we make the St. Jude valve. We know how to put the leaflets in without breaking the valve.
And hopefully you guys called Charlie to let him know he could stop crying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get into questions, Manny, 7 IPOs, hundreds of billions of dollars in value created, millions of patients touched, lives saved. How do you, and I'm gonna force you to make this a short answer here because we're gonna get into the questions. How do you rank Medical 21's opportunity, right, to those previous ventures? Does it have the potential for a single, a double, a grand slam? How does this one rank in terms of overall potential opportunity?
Well, if you take a look at some of the companies we made, they it was a little bit of a home run, and maybe it didn't go into the bleachers. It maybe went a little bit out of the park, and then it actually bounced in this, in the parking lot, but then bounced all the way to the moon and on the way to Mars. A couple of these companies were sold into multi-billion dollars. If you take, for example, the St. Jude project or the CPI project, at the time, the market was about 65,000 to 75,000 pacemakers or heart valves was the market. This project that we're working on now, the market is in excess of 2 to 3 million grafts. I think this has the greatest potential of them all. We will help more patients than we have ever helped with pacemakers or heart valves. And it's a very dramatic improvement because the harvesting of vessels out of your legs and arms is a horrendous, painful, fraught with infection, costly, a lot of different things. And we're able to do this without touching your legs, arms, breasts, etc. So I think if you're going to rank it, I have to say that this has the greatest potential to help a lot of people, to reduce pain, alleviate pain, and improve health in a lot of different ways. And financially, I think it could be the biggest one we've ever done.
It's incredible. Okay, so we have the living legend of medicine up here, 7 IPOs, incredible journey. He's seen multiple cycles. We're going to open it up to Q&A. There's got to be some questions, and we truly can't see anything. So if you got a question.
Can't.
So I have a 2-part question for you. So, Manny, when I asked you earlier a little bit about Medical 21 and some of the experiences that you've had with the companies, you made a joke that you're from the Bronx and they know not to mess with you when talking to investors and other people in the ecosystem. I want to hear a little bit about how you've approached the rest of the ecosystem now, coming in with another venture with the pedigree and the success you've had, going out to investors, going out to service providers and other people in the ecosystem. How do you strike the balance of finding the partners that you need, the partners that you've had on the journey before, the new partners that can help do things that are novel to the industry? How do you strike that balance with people in the industry? And then any advice that you have for up-and-coming entrepreneurs, first-time founders, younger executives at companies to take some of what you've learned and put it into practice?
That must be Henry. Is that Henry? Okay. First of all, and one would say, Manny, with the success you've had before, et cetera, and your track record, et cetera, this should be a cakewalk for you to take it through a strategic. No, we have two major hurdles. The first one being that you're doing what? You're working in cardiac surgery? And if I'm the CEO of a major company, we don't have anything down in cardiac surgery. There's no products down there. The truth of the matter is that is correct. Although we have 1 million procedures per year in cardiac and bypass surgery, okay, there is no product that can be sold, okay? Not really anything. because the product is a vessel that you take out of the leg or out of the arm or off of your breast. So I have to come in there and explain to them that is correct. There is no product. We have a saphenous vein, and you can't sell a saphenous vein or a radial, you can't sell it. But wait a minute, I got a better idea. Let's not spend the money and incur the pain, incur the infection in pulling out that saphenous vein. Why don't we use this graft out of a little package that we feel will be as good as, if not better, than that saphenous vein? And we can sell that. And once you sell that in an operation that is performed at least 1 million times per year, and by the way, the average patient has between 3 and 4 grafts. So that means somewhere in the neighborhood between 2.5 and 3.5 million times you can make that sale per year. That's an enormous market. That's a bigger market than pacemakers and heart valves and stents combined. Okay? But that's the first hurdle. The second hurdle is, and the one that hits me in the eyeballs every so often, and that is, he's doing what? He's making an artery. For what? For bypass surgery. Oh, no, not another one. Over the last 50 years, there's been at least, and I say this modestly, at least 100 attempts in trying to make an artificial artery. And they've been by the big companies, by the Medtronics, the St. Jude's, a variety of different companies have tried to do it. Universities, Mayo Clinics, Texas Heart, a variety of heart centers, physicians, et cetera, that have tried to make an artificial graft. Small diameter graft, no one's ever done it. So how do you come along and say, what? The kid from the Bronx is going to do this? Yeah, we're going to do it. We never went to the moon because we've never been there. No one goes to the moon. No one's ever done it. Well, no one's ever done this, but I'm going to do it. Okay, and we have done that through 7 years of extensive work in tissue regeneration technology, okay? Saving money, saving pain, infection, helping millions of patients. We're going to do it, and that's where we stand today. And that's how we overcome those 2 major obstacles.
So my takeaway from that 2-part question is that it's not easy. Even with a guy with your track record and your Rolodex and your network, it's not easy. And so as we're finding the next question out there, I think the second part to Henry's question was any advice for the young entrepreneurs that are out here. So maybe you could share, I don't know if it's persistence or what is the advice for entrepreneurs while we tee up another question out there?
Well, the answer to that is, by the way, when you do get the answer, call me because I want to get on that same line. Because it's hard.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with something that's never been done before, there's such a hesitation. And what makes it even worse is that 100 times it's been tried before and no one has done it. I had an investor come to our office, and he brought his cardiac surgeon. He brought his own surgeon to the meeting, and we went through the whole thing and everything, and the investor turned around to his own surgeon and said, well, what do you think? And the surgeon said, well, you know, I've looked at least 100 different grafts. That investor got up, left the room. He left the company, okay? Came to visit us. The surgeon I happen to know personally, and I said, you and I have to sit down, let's go over this again. I can tell you that the following week, that surgeon came back to my office with a signed subscription agreement and a check in hand, and he invested.
All right, persistence.
That was persistence.
Pays off.
Okay?
I think we have a question here. Thank you.
Hi. It's on? Should be on? Yeah. Hi, Manny. My name is Carl. I have a question with regards to the 7 successful IPOs you did. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Which one was your favorite and why?
Great question.
Wow, that is a good question. First of all, I hold the Guinness's Book of Record for the fastest IPO. We opened the doors on the company on February 2nd, 1972, and we did our first IPO 114 days later. That's got to be a record, okay? But I think my most favorite one was the St. Jude IPO. A lot of people, I ask people, what do you think was the amount of that? And most people will give me a number anywhere from 5 million to 50 million, 100 million. And the highest number I ever heard is, well, you needed about 500 million to do St. Jude. Well, the correct answer was 962,000. We did St. Jude with less than $1 million. Wow. Okay? And we did that one 7 months, or was it 9 months? About 9 months after we opened the doors of St. Jude, we went public in 9 months, and we did an offering for $962,500. Now, that one had a return that was absolutely phenomenal, okay? In fact, one of my current investors said, Manny, I just got $85 for my shares of St. Jude when Abbott bought it out. Abbott bought the company for $30 billion. And I said, yeah. He said, yeah, but I only paid 25 cents per share. And they gave me $85. So I said, well, the math is that you got, 432 times your money. Not bad.
Not bad. Yeah.
Okay.
That's great. More questions. We got about 5 minutes.
Hey, Manny, I'm a baseball guy, and Scott mentioned to me that you have a story about swinging for the fences. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I was born in the South Bronx. I ended up seeing from my building Yankee Stadium. I have a lot of stories about Yankee Stadium, and one in particular was Mickey Mantle. Mickey Mantle was, of course, known as one of the greatest players of all time. I believe he owned 5 or 7 World Series rings, okay? He was the only guy that ever received the MVP award more than once. I think he received it either twice or 3 times. One of the greatest players of all time. But very few people know that he held the record for strikeouts. Why would a guy like that strike out so much? And he was really bad. I remember following him. He went 0 for 4 today. He went 0 for 5 and stuff like that. Well, the problem was that during the early part of his career, someone that took care of the playing field left a cover off of the sprinkler system. And one day, Mickey Mantle went after a ball out in central field and got his leg caught in there, tore up both legs, tore them up, to the point that for him to continue to play, every single game he had both legs wrapped up. Now, once that happens, you don't go running too much anymore. So when he got up, he was told, you got to hit a home run or go home, okay? So he was always swinging for the fences, swinging for the fences. And you have to swing extra hard, which causes you to strike out more often. Well, I don't know about all of the entrepreneurs, but I can tell you about the stuff that I do. I have to swing for the fences because I'm doing things that people say cannot be done.
That's great. I think that's a perfect way to end it. I want to thank Manny for joining us today. Thank you all for bringing your lunch in here. And let's give Manny a round of applause, please.
Thank you. Thank you.